This is beyond the White Cube 2, because when Bill was proposing that he wanted to produce a panel that was talking about what can happen beyond the White Cube in terms of socially engaged practice and in terms of like thinking about exhibitions that can happen outside of museums as well as inside. So the whole point of this panel discussion is thinking about what's possible in terms of curators sharing their ideas, not just in terms of what they think of themselves and then moving that on, but how do you start to create collaboration and expand the ways that you can have a conversation. So I'm extremely happy to say that we have three fantastic speakers today that are going to be able to kind of enlighten this aspect of what networks and working beyond the White Cube is. Abigail with InCUBATE. InCUBATE has actually just recently I was going to say got rid of their space. They decided not to have a space. So it's interesting to, I really wanted her to talk because of the fact that it's interesting to think about what can happen when a group of people come together that literally want to produce the potential for funding and for kind of opportunities to happen outside of the traditional kind of exhibition type structure and outside of the traditional kind of like artist space or non-profit organisation. With Bisi, it was 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, that she founded the Centre for Contemporary Art in Lagos. And this is basically the first contemporary art centre that is in the city, and it's pretty much one of the few organisations across the whole of Africa that is enabling international conversations, exchange between artists. They also have this library, which is the biggest art library in Africa. So anybody who has books, you need to send them all to Nigeria, because this is, Bisi basically has the one place that people can get access to them. And so it's very much a big question of like, how can we start to find out what's going on in Nigeria, across Africa, and how can Bisi start to create dialogues and conversations without moving objects all the time or spending a lot of money on flights and this sort of thing. How can we do it low cost? And then with João, I was really interested in asking him to talk because of the fact that he's the curator of an exhibition called Facts that ICI has developed with him, and he developed it with us when he was working at the Drawing Centre. And it's a really interesting example of how an exhibition can start to have a life of its own and how it can start to proliferate as it moves forward. So that's just to give you a quick introduction as to the kind of the basics of this discussion. As I say, each of the speakers will talk for about 10-15 minutes, and then quite quickly I want to open it up for discussion with you.
In thinking about the concept of a network, what struck me about this exhibition in particular is that the idea of the network was sort of intrinsic to the concept to begin with, and then took on an added emphasis in a more sort of sociological way. So I kind of want to just describe that first, and then talk about, I think, what is an endemic need for networks within the ecology of American art music, particularly in the university art. So I was interested in what the fax machine allowed you to do, which is in a sense to have connections of experiential time. What was amazing to me about, again, tracing the history of the development of technology is the speed through which artists actually embraced it. And I think the implicit aspect of the network to this is the fact that the fax machine was seen as participatory, it was bi-directional, right? So it actually created an immediate network because something like fax are back. And it created collaborative relationships over geographical areas that could not have been united through any other kind of technology. Thanks to ICI, we were able to actually develop away from the exhibition to travel and change, and in a sense, be subject to a pretty fascinating morphology with this area. So it sort of went on the road, and our idea was that we would actually ask each institution to add their own parts. So there's the original core group faxes. We need to find structural and sort of exhibitionary ways to develop them. And I feel like giving over some of that curatorial authority is fact.
Hi everybody. So I'm here representing InCUBATE. InCUBATE stands for the Institute for Community Understanding Between Art and the Everyday. It's a collaborative project between me and 3 other people. Bryce is in the audience. The other 2 is Roman and Matthew. So, let's see. And this is our storefront space that we've been operating out of for the last 3 years, so we just closed recently. So we're based in Chicago. We started 4 years ago when we met studying art administration and policy at the School of Art Institute. And we started having a lot of conversations amongst ourselves about sort of surveying the cultural landscape, the world of nonprofits, and having a lot of questions about the career paths that were open to us. Just sort of thinking about how, as art administrators, how we wanted to support non-commercial works of art. That was what we were interested in talking about, cultivating, and what we were interested in learning about that was already happening in Chicago. So what we decided to do was come together and start a project space while we were students, because we really wanted to, I mean, a lot of people already know this, but Chicago has a really vibrant artist-run community. It also has a lot of artists that are interested in doing work in the public realm that's really socially and critically engaged. And we felt like if we could create a space that was outside of school to sort of interact with and create programs that, you know, we could have dialogue with people working already here, we could get to know our city in a way that perhaps is more difficult to do when you're a student.
Lagos was, I set it up in 2007. It's one of the first independent contemporary art spaces in Nigeria. Most of the spaces in Nigeria are commercial galleries that are showing more traditional artwork. Today I'm just going to talk about 2 or 3 projects that actually engage with the issue of networks, whether they're local, continental, or international. This is the image of our last project, which is actually a 30-day art photography residency, which was in February, March of 2010. The actual project, which is going to be a 1-year project, it's under the theme of on independence and the ambivalence of promise. 2010 sees over 16 African countries celebrate 50 years of independence from colonial rule. So it's a very important landmark here for a lot of countries within the African continent. As part of our program, we've devised this 1-year series of events, different programs, starting with this residency. When we started, I think I can count on my 2 hands how many people have interacted with contemporary art. So it was quite important that there was somewhere they could go to interact. There was a platform where artists could come together and discuss issues that are important to them. Talk about influences, talk about the critical texts that impact on their work, just share information about what they do, but also the Nigerian artists were sharing information about their culture, their country, their environment, their concerns, their interests. So there's this very intensive dialogue that's going on over a 10